Hello, Blythe, Evie, Joe, Jack, Callum, Cadence, Lucy, Orion, and anyone else who's listening. Welcome to Story Time. Today's story is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, written by Judy Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, written by Judy Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. This book first came out in 1978, so it's been around a long time. The story begins. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Look, they're having Aunt Jim's pancake mix. So light they float. And look at Grandpa's sticking his tongue out, and they're arguing over how many pancakes they could eat, and Mom is squeezing the oranges for orange juice. Lots going on at that table. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. Oh my goodness. Look, and the dog and the cat are going after it. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. Look at Henry with the pancake on his head. It's covering one eye. He looks like a pirate. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. A tall tale is just a story that you make up. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. Chew and Swallow. That's the name of the town. It's a long way away, isn't it? In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. So, it just looks like a regular town, doesn't it? But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Oh, look at how Grandpa's looking up in the sky and the dog's looking up. They're waiting for their food to come. Look in the street. There's a man walking with a base. He's walking across the street. There's people moving furniture across the street. And look at what's showing in the movie theater, the Rialto, dinner at 8 and duck soup. So they're all looking up into the sky. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain. It never snowed snow. And it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Oh my goodness. So it rained soup and juice, and it snowed mashed potatoes. Do you see the mashed potatoes? And green beans. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Oh my goodness. People could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they could always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were any leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. Oh my goodness. Look at that baseball game. It's raining pie and there's pancakes coming on top of the taxi. Do you see the taxi driver and the passenger with their plates out the window? And it looks like there's soup coming and somebody's drinking it out of an umbrella with a straw. And it looks like there's chicken coming. Somebody's catching it on a plate running down the sidewalk. Ooh, what a town. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterward. Oh my goodness. Look at it's that squirrel. It looks like a piece of jelly is almost hit that squirrel on the tree branch. For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. Look at it's Ralph's Roofless Restaurant. No cover, no minimum, and it's always open. People are just sitting at the table waiting for their meal to come in. Look at the little boy waiting at the door with the fake nose and a mustache. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing with a wonderful jello setting in the west. Wow, all the food comes like weather. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. They were emptied some of it. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. Look at how the sanitation department of Chew and Swallow has a big plate and a fork and a spoon to pick things up. Have you ever seen such a thing? Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. Spaghetti ties up town. Record-breaking pasta fall causes chaos. Traffic snarled on Lower Intestine Street. Look at all that spaghetti making a mess of things, hanging from the power lines. One day there was nothing but Gorgonzola cheese all day long. People aren't looking very happy about that, are they? The next day there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Oh my goodness, what's happening to the weather that day? Another day there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that was stuck in the fog. Like there's fish, and it looks like there's maybe some soup. Look at the nose and the face and the coming out of the pea soup. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently, often Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. Oh my goodness, look at that. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. Oh no, it's like flooding bread and rolls. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. Oh my goodness, look. They've got the TV station there filming it. Giant pancake on top of the school, just like that pancake covered the eye of Henry when it landed right on his head. Yikes! The weather's becoming extreme. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomach ache. Yikes! There was an awful salt and pepper wind, accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. Yikes. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine salt and pepper coming through the wind? And then tomatoes? The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So, a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. Look at that guy with a piece of pasta over his head. Boy, the food's getting bigger and bigger. Look at the French fries. And there's a pickle that's come through the roof of the house. Ice cream. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style, with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. Oh, look at that. They've made a raft with 2 pieces of bread with peanut butter, almost just like a sandwich, and then they've taken the another piece of bread and attached it as the rudder. Boy, the food has gotten giant, hasn't it? And then they just packed up what they absolutely needed and sailed off for a new land on a raft with a sail made out of a piece of Swiss cheese and another sail with pizza with mushrooms on it. Where in the world are they going? After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well, well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. Wow, look at that. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. and nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Wow, imagine they had to learn how to shop for food instead of catch it from the sky. It's a whole new world. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. That was a good story Grandpa told them, isn't it? The next morning we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. It wasn't mashed potatoes or peas, was it? We ran downstairs for bread and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter on the top at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. Look at how that hill of snow looks like a big pile of mashed potatoes, and the sun coming over it looks like a pat of butter. The end. Well, that's a fun story. I hope you liked it. Tomorrow we will be reading Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, written and illustrated by Mo Willems. It's lots of fun too. I think you'll like it. Take good care of yourselves. Look after each other. Love on each other. Always love yourself. And never forget, I love you all to the moon and back. We'll be back together tomorrow for story time when we read Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus by Mo Williams. Bye-bye.